Get out of this house, god of poverty.
On the day I closed the restaurant I had managed for 30 years, intending to spend more time with my family from then on, I was met with a cruel declaration from my wife, Kate. When I tried to talk things over, all I got in return was a disdainful smirk.
Unlike you, who's almost 60, I'm still in my 40s. I plan to make something of my life again, and I don't need a washed up man like you around.
I see, you're serious about our divorce then. Being rejected so completely, I had no choice but to face reality. As I trudged out of the house, I heard light footsteps approaching from behind.
Dad, I'm coming with you.
It was my 20-year-old daughter Zoe, out of breath from running. As we walked toward the nearest station, Zoe looked a little uneasy. To reassure her, I decided to share something I hadn't yet mentioned. Actually, my annual income is... Zoe's eyes widened in surprise at my confession. And just a few days later, Kate, pale and panicked, reached out to me. My name is Thomas. I'm 59, with my 60th birthday just around the corner, and I'm still working as an active chef while running my restaurant in town. The restaurant sales are just enough to support my family, and I can't afford to open another location. But I cherish this place, which I've been running for over 30 years, and I've always poured my heart into preparing meals for my customers. Honestly, I never thought I'd be able to keep it going this long. When I first opened, there were days when sales were as low as $30, and the restaurant was far from popular. Even so, I kept at it, focusing on providing excellent service and delicious food without getting discouraged. Little by little, people started coming in, and by the time I was in my 30s, the restaurant's reputation began to improve. Back then, the internet wasn't as widespread as it is now. There weren't any ranking sites or photo sharing platforms. Word of mouth from customers who enjoyed the cozy atmosphere and great food was what brought attention to the place. Eventually, local radio stations and magazines began featuring me in interviews, which boosted the restaurant's popularity even more. Then one day, during a special TV segment about the town, my restaurant was highlighted as a hidden gem. A world-famous celebrity, whose name everyone recognized, visited my restaurant and enjoyed my food with a big smile. It felt like a dream come true, but starting the day after the TV broadcast, the restaurant's sales increased even more. And it wasn't just the sales that grew. When I walked through town, strangers would call out, "I saw you on TV." Even my ingredient suppliers started saying, "If you ever expand, we'd love for you to source from us again." It felt like everyone cared about my restaurant and had high hopes for its future. It was such a surreal time, but I grounded myself and kept giving my all to every customer who came in. That's when Kate, who would later become my wife, walked into the restaurant. Kate was a petite woman with a charming, cheerful demeanor and a beautiful smile. In her 20s at the time, Kate hesitantly took a seat, glancing nervously around the restaurant as if she wasn't used to dining out. From the kitchen, I peeked out and watched her, curious about why she kept looking at the decor and other customers. She kept glancing around at the restaurant's interior and other customers, which made me wonder if something was wrong. However, I realized that my concern was unnecessary when she was about to leave. After finishing her meal, Kate looked me straight in the eye as I worked the register, then gave me a radiant smile.
Your food was absolutely delicious. I'll definitely come back.
Her glowing smile made my heart skip a beat. Up until then, I'd been entirely focused on my cooking career, with no interest in romance or marriage. I'd rather spend my time experimenting with new recipes than meeting women. But Kate effortlessly slipped into the gap in my heart. As promised, she began visiting my restaurant about once a week, always making a point to strike up a conversation with me. Before I knew it, I was completely smitten with Kate, who was 10 years younger than me, and we eventually started dating. On the way back from researching other popular restaurants with Kate, I spotted a shop, bought her a necklace, and gave it to her as a gift. Her face lit up with joy. From there, everything progressed smoothly. We got married, had a child, and were blessed with our adorable daughter, Zoe. However, Kate's personality changed after we got married. During our courtship, she was always kind to me, but as soon as we became husband and wife, she started treating me like an inconvenience. Though she joined the restaurant's board, claiming she wanted to help, she rarely showed up for work.
I can't come in today. I have lunch plans with my friends.
She started saying that and began canceling at the last minute repeatedly. Kate, the other staff are watching. Can't you work a bit more?
I have my own commitments. Besides, I'm helping out because your restaurant isn't making enough money. If the sales were better, we wouldn't have this problem.
Even when I pointed it out, Kate would snap back at me and argue. No matter what I said, I couldn't get through to her, and the constant tension made me feel like I needed to work even harder to make up for it. Kate handled the housework and childcare. I did my best to help out, taking care of Zoe on my days off so Kate could have some time to herself. Even so, I thought she must still be overwhelmed, so I worked tirelessly for nearly 20 years. But one day, an unexpected situation was thrust upon me. On my 59th birthday, I stopped Kate to talk to her. But before I could even begin, she frowned and averted her gaze as if she'd seen something unpleasant.
Just because it's your birthday, you're not planning to lounge around the house, are you? We're struggling financially this month, so go out and work as much as you can.
I need to talk to you about something important. When I pressed her a bit, Kate reluctantly agreed to listen. I then began explaining the plan I had been thinking about. I'll be 60 next year. It's about time I considered retiring. That's why I've decided to close the restaurant.
Well, that sounds great. That rundown place isn't going to make any more money anyway.
Her quick acceptance surprised me. Given how much Shed always complained about money, I thought Shed strongly opposed the idea of closing the restaurant. But instead, Kate seemed unexpectedly cheerful about it. I see. Thanks for supporting me and helping with the restaurant all these years.
It's not a big deal. Just make sure you keep working hard until the end.
Taking her words as encouragement, I poured everything into my cooking for the final year. As the closing date drew closer, loyal customers who had supported us over the years came by one after another, and I couldn't hold back my tears. Caught between the joy of customers making the effort to visit and the sadness of realizing that the restaurant was truly coming to an end, I closed the chapter on my restaurant's nearly 30-year history. Having devoted myself to work all these years, I plan to focus on spending quality time with my family moving forward. However, what awaited me when I returned home was an unbelievable declaration from Kate.
You've worked hard until today. Let's get a divorce. Your role is over, so leave this house.
What are you talking about all of a sudden? I asked in shock, but Kate looked at me with disgust and tried to force me out of the house.
You're not earning money anymore, so it's only natural. I'll still be doing housework, but there's no reason or room for me to keep a jobless man like you here.
That's not fair. You've seen how hard I've worked for 30 years, Kate. I was hoping to spend more time with the family now, I retorted, unable to accept her cruel treatment, but her cold attitude didn't change. It was as if she was saying I was no longer useful without money, as she tried to take the house keys from me.
You're already 10 years older than me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life taking care of you. Why should I keep living with a broke man who doesn't bring in any income?
How can you say something so cruel? Is getting older such a crime? I've worked tirelessly for you and Zoe, so how can you say that to me? I tried to reason with her, but no matter how much I pleaded, my words didn't reach her. Instead of reconsidering the divorce, Kate gave me a scornful look and a cold smile, as if mocking me.
If you really care about me and Zoe, then you should agree to the divorce even more. Zoe is already 20. She'd hate having a shabby father like you around.
Shabby? I looked down at my clothes. For about 20 years since marrying Kate, I poured all my earnings into the household whenever she said we didn't have enough money or demanded that I earn more. I didn't want Kate to feel deprived, and I wanted Zoe to have a life where she could do what she loved. But in exchange, I completely neglected taking care of myself. The shirt I wore was stained with the smell of oil and had been with me since before I got married. The hem of my pants was frayed and the knees were worn through. My shoes were scuffed and I didn't own anything like a stylish watch. Looking at myself, I realized my appearance must seem shabby and embarrassing to others. But that was because I handed over all my paychecks to Kate. Kate herself would buy new clothes, saying she was meeting her friends, or get trendy shoes, claiming she had lunch plans with Zoe's friends' moms, and she was always well dressed. The skirt Kate was wearing now probably cost more than everything I was wearing combined.
You can see it for yourself, can't you? You're the jobless old man wearing torn and dirty clothes. Now, get out of this house, god of poverty.
Wait, listen to me. The money isn't a problem. Actually, I had plans for after closing the restaurant. Shocked, I tried again and again to convince Kate. I couldn't accept her sudden demand for divorce and pleaded for us to talk it through. But all I got in return was a disdainful smirk.
Nothing you say will change my mind. Unlike you, who's almost 60, I'm still in my 40s. I plan to make something of my life again, and I don't need a washed-up man like you around.
I see, you're serious about our divorce then. Being rejected so completely, I had no choice but to face reality. I still had plenty I wanted to say, but I didn't want to hear any more of her hurtful words. I packed up my belongings into a travel bag and decided to leave the house. I was hoping we could go on a family trip after I retired. Never thought I'd end up using my travel bag like this.
Wait a minute.
As I was about to step out the front door, Kate called out to stop me in a hurry. Could she have changed her mind? I turned around with a faint hope, but what she held out to me was divorce papers.
Before you leave, sign the divorce papers. Do I really have to spell it out for you? This kind of irresponsibility is exactly why you could never earn enough.
I never imagined I'd be forced to sign divorce papers on the day I retired. Swallowing my bitterness, I signed my name. Though it was a home I had lived in for years, I couldn't bear to stay in such a painful, heartbreaking place any longer.
Make sure to submit this soon. You can at least manage that, right? Oh, and I'll contact you later about the alimony.
Kate barked out her orders and, still in high spirits, pushed me out the door before slamming it shut. In the blink of an eye, I was cast out. Letting out a deep sigh, I slowly began to walk. I was deeply hurt by the fact that Kate had even prepared the divorce papers. She must have been planning to kick me out on the very day of my retirement for quite some time. With every step I took away from the house, my sadness turned into anger. What does she think all my years of hard work for the family were for? Maybe it was my fault for always giving in whenever Kate asked for money, saying it was for Zoe's upbringing. I was utterly disgusted with myself for having spoiled them so much, but even Kate wasn't like that when we first got married. I looked at my hands, freshly retired chef. These were the hands that had endured burns and oil splatters from decades of cooking. The skin was thick and rough, with scars scattered across them. They weren't pretty by any means, but with these hands, I had supported my family's life. If I had married someone other than Kate, would I have been welcomed with a smile? Maybe after closing my restaurant of 30 years, I'd have heard something kind like, "Thank you for all your hard work. Let's cherish our family time together now." Lost in such empty daydreams, I heard light footsteps approaching from behind.
Dad, I'm coming with you.
"Zoe, aren't you staying with your mom?" It was my 20-year-old daughter Zoe, out of breath from running. She must have overheard the argument between Kate and me from her room. With tears welling up in her big eyes, Zoe grabbed my hands.
Mom's being so mean. You worked so hard for us all these years, and she's acting like it doesn't matter.
"Thank you, but aren't you embarrassed to be seen with a shabby dad like me?" I spread my hands out to show her. My faded shirt had fraying hems, and the belt around my waist was 20 years old and discolored. To someone young and fashionable like Zoe, I probably looked like a mess. But Zoe shook her head vigorously in denial.
So what if your clothes are old? It just shows how hard you worked for us. I'm not embarrassed at all. To me, you're the coolest dad, and I'm so grateful for everything.
Zoe declared firmly, then grabbed my arm and tried to pull me back toward the house.
That's why I'm going with you. I want to pack my things, so can you help me carry them?
"I appreciate how you feel, but are you really okay with this?" Though I hesitated, Zoe nodded without a moment's doubt. And so, I found myself stepping back into the house I never thought I'd return to, only minutes after leaving. The moment Kate saw me, she raised her eyebrows and raised her voice.
This isn't your house anymore. You're a nuisance. So hurry up and leave, will you?
I'm leaving too. I just came to grab my things, so stay out of my way.
Kate, clearly not expecting Zoe to side with me, stared at her in shock for a moment, her mouth agape. But her expression quickly twisted with anger.
Fine. Do whatever you want. If you're going to defy me, you can leave the house for good.
With that, Kate sat down in front of the TV and said nothing more. I helped Zoe pack her things, and together we left the house. This time, with no intention of ever coming back, I shut the front door behind us. As we walked toward the nearest station, Zoe looked a little uneasy. I assumed the sudden events had left her nervous, but it seemed she was worried about our future.
Dad, what are we going to do starting tomorrow?
"It's okay," Kate said. "Get out, god of poverty, but there's actually someone like a god of fortune who's taken me in. I decided to reassure Zoe by telling her about the plans for my post-retirement life that I hadn't shared yet. I closed my restaurant partly because of my age, but there was a bigger reason. I've been offered a position as a personal chef and I start my new job tomorrow.
A personal chef?
Surprised, Zoe listened as I explained. It all began when Mark, the CEO of a renowned American tech company, happened to visit my restaurant. The flavors I had honed over the years matched his tastes perfectly, and he became a huge fan, making time in his busy schedule to visit once a month. However, his secretary eventually pointed out that his visits were causing delays in his work. That's when Mark made me a proposal.
Your cooking is not only healthy, but also looks and tastes incredible. Would you consider becoming my personal chef and cooking at my home?
At first, I thought it was a joke, but his secretary joined in, urging me to accept. Given my age and the toll long hours had been taking on me, I decided to take Mark up on his offer. Mark promised me an annual salary of $500,000. Being able to cook what I love and earn such a great salary makes me a lucky man.
I love your cooking, Dad, but this sounds too good to be true. You're so trusting. Are you sure you're not being scammed?
Though Zoe was skeptical, I confidently led her to the area near Mark's home, where a newly built apartment had been prepared for me. When I unlocked the door, Zoe's eyes widened in amazement as she stepped inside.
This place is so luxurious. Dad, you were telling the truth. The view from the window is stunning, and I've never been in such a fancy apartment before.
From today, this is our new home. When I made the announcement, Zoe's eyes lit up with joy. She went around exploring the spacious kitchen and the sunny rooms one by one, exclaiming in excitement as she admired them. Originally, this apartment was meant for all of us to move into, including Kate.
If Mom finds out the truth, she'll regret it so much.
We exchanged a glance and couldn't help but laugh together. And so, I began a new chapter in life as Mark's personal chef, embarking on a fresh start. After that, life passed peacefully for a while. Now that I was cooking at home, Mark could focus more on his work. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's because of me, but I've heard that his company's performance has been steadily improving. One day, there was a request for a documentary to closely follow the daily life of Mark, the young IT CEO, and I ended up being interviewed for TV. It had been a long time since I was last interviewed, so I was pretty nervous, but it made me happy to hear Mark praising my cooking endlessly. The problem arose the day after the TV segment aired. I received repeated phone calls on my cell from Kate, my ex-wife.
I saw you on TV. What's this about being a CEO's personal chef? You're supposed to be a broke, jobless man.
Kate kept shouting her accusations one-sidedly. Even after I hung up, she kept calling back repeatedly, so I had no choice but to meet her in person. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, Kate was already there, and the moment she saw me, she furrowed her brow in anger and started yelling.
How dare you deceive me? If I'd known, I wouldn't have divorced you. So how much are you making as the CEO chef? You better share it with me.
We're divorced. We're strangers now. Why would I share anything with you?
What?
When I calmly responded, Kate muttered softly, stunned into silence. During our marriage, I'd always been kind to her. I tolerated small selfish acts with a smile, and even when I disagreed, I would express it gently. For me to suddenly and firmly shut her down must have been a shock. Kate blinked in confusion, momentarily speechless. But thinking she could still manipulate me, she started talking again.
For a broke man, you sure are acting arrogant. Don't forget, we were married, and we haven't even settled alimony yet.
That makes it even less your concern. Mark hired me after we divorced. I have no obligation to take care of your life after our divorce. As I continued to reject her firmly, Kate began to fidget nervously. She probably thought that, as in our marriage, being assertive would make me give in. Instead, my unexpected resistance left her flustered. Changing tactics, she switched to a sweet, coaxing tone, trying to butter me up.
What's gotten into you, Thomas? You've never spoken to me like this before.
That's because we were married, but now I've decided there's no need to hold back. I made my stance clear, leaving no room for misunderstanding, but Kate continued to approach with a sly grin. The once cute smile from before our marriage was gone, replaced by the shameless expression of someone willing to do anything for money.
Come on, don't be stingy. As a private chef for a famous CEO, you must be making a huge salary, right?
It's true, my annual salary is $500,000. When I answered honestly, thinking there was no need to hide it, Kate went pale, her mouth opening and closing as she stammered.
$500,000. If I'd known you were making that much, I never would have divorced you. Hey, Thomas, let's get married again. This time, I promise I'll be devoted to you.
How could I believe that? You're the one who handed me divorce papers on the very day I retired. I wouldn't let her forget how I came home, excited to finally spend time with my family, only to be met with betrayal and despair. Seeing Kate now clinging to me without a shred of remorse, I finally made up my mind. Don't you feel ashamed of yourself? I know everything.
What do you mean? I haven't done anything.
When I gave Kate a sharp glare, she immediately started sweating nervously, looking flustered. It seemed she had a guilty conscience. Even though we're no longer connected, I once cared enough to marry you. I had hoped we could part ways peacefully without stirring up more trouble, but you've left me no choice. Though Kate had done many terrible things during our 20 years of marriage, I had developed some attachment to her. She had, after all, given birth to and raised Zoe, our beloved daughter, for which I was genuinely grateful. That's why I had hoped to part ways cleanly and avoid any further conflict. But since Kate was the one stirring up trouble, I had no choice. You were listed as a board member at my restaurant and occasionally worked there, right?
Yeah, so what? That tiny restaurant made me slave away. It was a real pain.
Kate gritted her teeth and glared at me stubbornly, as if refusing to back down. Feeling more sadness than anger at this point, I quietly pulled an envelope from my bag. When I took out the documents inside and Kate read their contents, her expression changed instantly. You were stealing stock from the restaurant, weren't you? The security cameras caught it all.
That's
She seemed about to deny it, but the documents I handed her included clear footage from the security cameras. Though the images were grainy, they clearly showed Kate carrying bottles of wine and large cuts of steak. The documents also included an inventory list highlighting discrepancies between the stock and the records. I always thought something was off. Only high-value portable items kept disappearing from the restaurant.
it was your restaurant. So it's basically mine too. What's wrong with taking what's mine?
Even as she turned pale, Kate didn't apologize. Instead, she lashed out at me angrily. Her complete lack of remorse finally pushed me past my breaking point. You had no right to manage the restaurant's inventory. This is outright theft. I could take this evidence to the police.
The police. You're not serious, are you? If I end up with a criminal record, how am I supposed to find someone to marry in the future?
Hearing the word police, Kate became visibly agitated. But that wasn't all I knew. And about the stolen ingredients, do you have anything to say about how they were used?
Well, I ate them at home. There was some wine that looked delicious, so I took it. I'm sorry, just please don't go to the police.
Kate's eyes darted nervously as she began rubbing her hands together anxiously. She repeated hollow apologies, clearly trying to cover something up. To think she believed I'd fall for such an obvious excuse. It's almost insulting how little she thought of me. Letting out a deep sigh, I pulled out another envelope. It's too much for one person to eat. You gave it to this guy, didn't you?
How do you know about Brian?
Inside the envelope was a report from a private investigator detailing Kate's affair. The investigation revealed that Kate had been stealing expensive ingredients from my restaurant to lavish gifts on a younger man named Brian, her lover. I hired an investigator and had them gather evidence. It turns out you've been spending the family's money on him for years, even before we divorced.
That's not true. I only started giving Brian gifts 2 years ago. Before that, I was just buying bags and jewelry for myself.
In her desperation to downplay her infidelity, Kate inadvertently exposed her misuse of our shared finances. Realizing her mistake, she quickly covered her mouth, but it was too late. Then I'll add embezzlement of marital assets to the list of charges. Deny it all you want, but I'll take it to court.
I'm sorry. Please, I can't deal with a lawsuit or going to court. I'll apologize. Just don't go to the police.
Practically in tears, Kate repeatedly apologized. In the end, I agreed not to press charges under one condition. I would reclaim all the assets I had left behind after the divorce. This included the house, and Kate was left with nothing but a single suitcase as she moved out. When she handed me divorce papers on my retirement day, Zoe stood by my side. Now, Kate had no one. Her lover, Brian, whom she had spent so much money on, had dumped her without hesitation. For me, he was Kate's affair partner, but for her, he was an ideal lover. To Brian, however, Kate was nothing more than one of many mistresses. Brian had only been with Kate for the gifts and money, so as soon as she ran out of funds, he cut off all contact with her. Kate was the only one who thought she'd start a new life with Brian in the house she'd kicked me out of. As for what became of Kate, even after repaying the alimony and returning the money she'd embezzled from me, she was overwhelmed by debts from her shopping and entertainment expenses. By the time she realized it, all she had left was a mountain of debt. Though she reluctantly began working, having been a housewife throughout our marriage, she found employment to be an overwhelming source of stress. At her part-time jobs, she often clashed with coworkers and was quickly fired. Even jobs as a cashier or cleaner didn't last, as she repeatedly canceled shifts at the last minute. Eventually, she ended up on a blacklist among local employers, leaving her with no work opportunities at all. Finally, Kate, at her wit's end, reached out to me again. When we were married, Kate used to dress stylishly, but now she was wearing stained, tattered second-hand clothes, likely having sold off her nicer outfits. Seeing her in such a pitiful state, even worse than how I looked after our divorce, I couldn't help but think this was karma coming full circle.
I was wrong. Please, let's start over. I want to eat your delicious cooking again, Thomas. Zoe must want to see me, right?
Kate rambled on about her wishes and delusions, but I quietly shook my head. Zoe told me she never wants to see the woman who abandoned her father again. She's even said she's using you as an example of what kind of wife she doesn't want to become.
No way.
Kate collapsed to the ground with a look of despair, crying. Even as I stood there in silence, she began glancing at me, her tone turning pitiful as she begged.
How can you leave your ex-wife like this, so broken and struggling? Don't you feel bad? Isn't it cruel to turn me away like this?
Why don't you ask yourself that on the day you handed me divorce papers? You laughed as you threw me out in my shabby clothes. With those words, I turned and walked away. After walking a short distance, I looked back to see Kate silently shuffling off, her head down, disappearing into the distance. After that, I never saw or heard anything about Kate again. She had once hoped to rekindle her life through dating and remarriage, but in her current state, finding someone willing to take her in would be nearly impossible. Meanwhile, I continued honing my cooking skills. To satisfy Mark and keep him impressed, I constantly experimented with new flavors and tested recipes at home.
Dad, your cooking looks so good. Can I take a picture and post it on my social media?
One day, Zoe said that to me while admiring my cooking. She posted the photo, and thanks to its vibrant presentation, it quickly gained a lot of attention. I was not used to social networking, so I left it all up to Zoe, which turned out to be a great decision.
If I take it like this, your food will look even more delicious.
As Zoe said that, she worked on creating modern, stylish photos by arranging the background and placing small props around the plates. As we kept experimenting and posting regularly, my cooking gained more and more recognition. Zoe herself, appearing in some photos, was praised online as the adorable chef's daughter, which added even more buzz. I was amazed by the unexpected power of the internet. Mark, however, saw a business opportunity in it.
Thomas, your food is trending on social media.
Excitedly checking the social media posts, Mark was thrilled to see the new potential in my cooking and decided to venture into restaurant management as a new business endeavor. Naturally, I was appointed as the executive chef of the restaurant. Located in a prime, high-traffic area, the restaurant quickly gained a stellar reputation and is now so popular that reservations are booked a month in advance. I am deeply grateful to Mark for giving me a new chapter in life and to Zoe for creating the opportunity. I want to keep creating food that brings people joy. With that thought in mind, I continue to stand in the kitchen today,